skills down real quick. Now look, I'm going to show you the next project. Next project's called the filter dryer project, because now that you got the flare tree done, and I got to say, these are mighty nice trees I'm seeing here. All right, getting a little off on the measurements by maybe a 1/16 to an 1/8. Some of you that's more than that, I'll send you back and have you do it. And then also with the flares, got to make sure they're flared all the way around. And then the burrs are out. You got to make sure it's nice and smooth, that you're using this deburring tool properly. I'm going to show you again how to use this, because I see some of you using it right and some maybe not so good, but we'll show you one more time with that. So the flare tree's good. Now you've done the practice of all the flares, we got to put your skills to test. All right, we're going to test them out under pressure, and you're going to need some stuff though. So here's the project sheet for the next project. All right, and it's got some other stuff on it besides just the grading scale. It's got a material list. So the first thing on the material list is 4 1/4-inch SAE flares. That's just a standard, they call that, the standard flare, standard measurement. All right, so what that means is, standard measurement flare, I have 4 of them already set up for you right here like that. Those are these things here, flare nuts. Then you also will get 1 1/4-inch union. I think that's the next thing. All right, and then a plug. That's the next thing. So a union, where we're going to join 2 things together, like this one there, that flare nut. Let's say I had a piece of pipe coming out of there, and we can connect that to another piece of pipe and connect it up tight. Where the plug, that just connects up and dead ends. That's going to just stop any stuff, could be vapor, could be liquid, any pressurized fluid. All right, fluid's interchangeable, vapor, liquid. Pressurized fluid from coming out. In our case, it's going to be nitrogen. You're going to be testing, so I'm also going to show you how to set up the nitrogen tank with a nitrogen regulator. When you get this stuff, after you turn in the the flare tree project, all right, all this stuff is in one case. Do not get individual pieces from different cases. So like you show me that you're ready to do the next project, you're going to take a little piece of paper like this, and you're going to, because this is a lot of stuff to maintain, all right, and you write your name. All right, and your period, because I got a lot of kids. So this is period 1. So I put this in here, and then I take all the pieces out. So I know who's still needs to turn in their stuff. Because as you get this done, I'll have you cut it up, and I'll be showing you the next thing, and you put it back. You get graded by bringing all the pieces back to me, and in the same condition. In other words, if these corners aren't rounded off, I don't want them brought back rounded off. And I'll talk a little bit why they could come back rounded off in a minute. But you should be bringing me back 4 of these. What were these? What's on the material list? What's the first thing? Flares, flare nuts, flare nuts. All right, flares. And then what's that? Union. Yep, union. 2 things coming together. And that one is a plug. Yep, okay, so you got it. And then the last thing you're going to need is a piece of 1/4-inch copper tubing. Where's the 1/4-inch at? Let me see that piece right there. I'll just take that whole piece because I'll take the back end. Now, if you need it off the roll yourself off a straight piece. I think we do have a roll on the other table. But all I need is 10 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mark 10 inches here on the ruler. 10 inches, it's right about there. And I'm going to cut it with a tubing cutter. Now look, this is hard pipe to hold. So if you want to make it a little easier for yourself, use the block. You don't even need to clamp it. You just put it in the block, make sure it's up on the quarter, and then just use this like an extra set of hands and it keeps the tubing. Or you can get a set of gloves. All right, and the gloves have a little rubber on them to keep also the tubing from slipping, give you a little grip, a little more grip. And take your time with it. All right, I shouldn't see a big turn on the knob for you when you're cutting. You should just roll around a couple times and then just a little tightening. That's all it takes. Eventually, it takes a little time, but you want it to take a little time. You don't want to rush. There's no rush. All right, take your time, do the work good. That's it. All right, so I'm gonna give that back to you, and I'm gonna go ahead and keep this one here. So I got a 10-inch piece of tubing. Now do a little math with me real quick. All right, not hard math. Let's do a little basic arithmetic. It says over here on one side with the plug, it's how many inches from end of flare to end of flare? 4? Thank you, Dr. And then the other side is what?
5.
All right, so when I added up 4 and 5, what's that?
9.
9, but yet I gave you 10 inches of tubing to work with. What does that mean?
The flare nuts go.
What? Flare nuts?
Yeah.
All right, what else do you think it might be? He's right on with the flare nuts. I want to show you. If you think it's an inch extra in case you mess up, that's not the case. What it is, and I'm going to show you this. Let me go ahead and flare one up, and we'll put one of the nuts on. But I'm going to go ahead. The other thing I'm seeing is you're not using the right side. The side with the bevel should be the side that you're using. So all of them mostly have the bevel on one side, that little recess of 45 degrees, except for this one. And that's because this wing nut, if you haven't noticed, gets in the way. And some of you brought flares that were like half done on one side. it's because you had it on the wrong side and the wing nut got in your way and made it a little difficult. So again, let's do the deburr. Let me show you that real quick, because this is a small pipe to deburr. Cut it kind of quick right there on one side. So you should aim it down and see copper pieces coming out. All right, you don't, I see people, they think that's just messing around. That's messing around with the tool. To really deburr the tool, you take it slow and you want to just roll around the inside with the blade, and you should see flakes coming out. All right, should restore the wall thickness back to its original depth. That's what we're doing there with that. We're getting that wall thickness back. And then also, you don't want to dig chunks out, because that'll mess up your flare and actually cause a leak. So that's pretty much it. Now, what was the height for the 1/4 inch? Anybody remember? Got all kinds of change out here on the table. Let me see that bucket of change right there. Yeah, huh? Oh, money and HVAC. Look at that. Which one of these coins should I use? A nickel, a penny, a dime? A what? A dime. That's right, a dime. So check it out with the dime, the height of a dime. All right? And then you can go ahead and size it up. Oh, I lost it and dropped it. And then also, what happens here is she's getting dirty. So I'm losing, probably need a file brush. I need to clean out some of these tools because we've been using them for about a month. And they're getting a little dirty, so they're hard to grip. All right, there's the dime. Let's get the wing nut on. This one's closer, so I'm going to tighten up the one closer first. Shouldn't need the tool, but sometimes, you know, they're older tools. It should pretty well, or if it's dirty inside. There, get it on both sides. I'm going to flare it out. Boom, flare's done. No rough edge on the inside because we deburred it. All right, that looks good. Now watch this. When I put, this is the reason why you're doing it. This union is going to sit, that bevel of the flare sits with the bevel of the fitting right there. So I can go ahead and we're going to take this one up like this. Now you notice I don't have a flare on that end. Once it's flared, I can get the flare nut on. So you got to make sure to leave one end open. All right, and then I can take it and I can tighten it up like that and put the one end in like that of the union. But watch this. Look at how much is taken up. Let me put a line on the back side of this flare. So when you take it apart, not a 1/2 inch. What size pipe is this? 1/4 inch. So whatever size the pipe is, on these short nuts, there's two things. There's short nuts, there's long nuts, there's really long flare nuts. But on the short nut, on a regular flare nut, whatever size the pipe is, that's the size that gets taken up inside the flare. So now if you do the math again, it says 5 inches here, but really you have a 1/4 inch going inside that side and a 1/4 inch going over here. You got 2 quarters in your pocket. How much is that? 50, half of a dollar, right? Half of an inch too. Quarter here, quarter. So really, you shouldn't cut that 5 inches. It'll be too short by the time you do the flares. What should you cut that one? 6? 5.5. And what does that leave with the other side then? You don't even have to cut it anymore. You cut 5.5 on one side, that leaves you 4.5. That's why you have the 10 inches. So you do just that. You take this, you measure it back, you find the 5.5 inch mark, okay? And then you mark it, and then you cut it, and then you're gonna flare the other pipe. Once I see the 2 pipes flared, and I see your flares are good, and I see you've cut the right size pipe, then I'll give you the kit to go in there, and we call that a setup. All right, I've set it all up for you already, and I want to show you some other things about these flares real quick. So while I'm doing this, I'm gonna pass it around. This is a short nut. This is a long nut. It goes twice the amount. So for a long nut, you'd have to add a 1/2 inch for 1/4 inch pipe because it goes double the length of what the size the pipe is. All right, but it gives it more stability. And then if there's a lot of vibration, the pipe's held, more of the pipe's held tighter to the fitting. So that's pretty good for that. So pass that around. And then this is an extremely long nut right here. All right, that's a little bigger. All right, so there's a regular nut, short nut, long nut. And I'm gonna go ahead and cut this up here and do the other side. So you can go ahead, I'm gonna deburr them all real quick. I'm just gonna put it in the pipe halfway on either side. I'm gonna let the block hold it. And I'm gonna just run the deburring tool around the edge, trying not to gouge any corners, gouge out the pipe, but get the burrs out. All right, and then we get the other side here. If you want to use gloves while you're doing this, that's fine. Now, you can do this deburring tool as well from the Although I see some of them with Imperial, they're switching to a pop-up deburring tool, but this is called a reamer. You can ream it out like this too, but this is a two-step process, because what I'm doing is I'm coning out the metal when I do that if I dig too deep, which means you got to come back across the top and scrape the top. This deburring tool has one edge, it's raised up a little bit, so that's what that's there for. If it pops up, you got to put it down while you're cutting. You don't want it spinning around while you're cutting. And this takes a little bit more work. This does nice work when you use this tool right. All right, so both sides are reamed. I'm gonna go ahead and flare it up. What was the measurement? A dime. There is a true measurement to that, but we just use that as a rough rule of thumb. Lock it in, flare it out. Now I can put the nuts on. And now remember, here's what you got to do. This is an important step. Some of you are going to forget it and you're going to be mad because you weren't paying attention right now, or between the time that you're starting this project and now, you'll forget about it. Pipe's got to be straight, straighten it all out, and then you got to put one nut on one way and then the other nut on the other way. Opposite. Because remember, once you flare this in, you're not going to be able to get any nuts on. So don't forget both nuts. You got to put both nuts on. Then you can put it back in the block. What was the height? A dime. Let's see if we can just do it without the dime, huh? See if we're getting pretty good, because this will be our third winner of the day. Back that out a little bit, give me a little room. Tighten this up, and then I want to show you the wrenches. All right. Hey, you, stop shaking that, please. Unless you got a tune. If you got a tune to go with that, like you can shake it a little bit and come up with a nice tune, it's good. You got a tune? No? Okay. And just, hey. Put everything down. You gotta have idle hands, huh? All right. Pieces are up. You're gonna take one of these. This is called a filter dryer. We use this in the refrigeration system to remove contaminants and moisture. It has a moisture absorbing material. Anybody ever buy shoes or clothes and you reach inside and you pull out this thing and it says, "Do not eat, keep away from children"? It says some of them say it's a desiccant, a moisture absorbing material. That's this stuff in here. This is also filter dryer they used in chemistry in the Nova class that they were throwing away, they were using for a while. But if you were to see through this would be exactly like the same thing almost, all right? It's got some sort of either active alumina, or silica gel, which is a moisture absorbing material. Liquid can go through it, but if there's water, moisture, water, that will get absorbed into the desiccant, all right? And then the refrigerant can just flow right on through. And then it's also got some screens and some sieves. Could be a metal sieve, or it could be a metal screen, or a fiberglass porous screen. That's to remove any contaminants. Let's say you didn't get the burr out, it fell down the pipe. This is what will catch it right here, this filter dryer. Most important thing when installing the filter dryer is the arrow. Arrow shows the direction of flow. And you might see some in your house, outside by the outdoor unit, although now the standard is to kind of put them up in the indoor, by the indoor unit, right by the metering device, which is like a small cap tube, it could be, small pipe, and it protects that metering device. Or it could be an automatic one that opens and closes with temperature. It's got a tiny little hole in it. We don't want anything getting in that tiny little hole. All right, so the filter dryer is supposed to be right before that to get it to make sure that it's clean. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take the filter dryer, you're gonna screw one piece on one side, doesn't matter which way for you the arrow points, screw the other one on the other side here. Let me just get this and pop it in. I'm not gonna finish the whole thing, but I'll just show you with this part right here. All right, and then you're gonna put the plug in. It tells me that the plug goes in the 4-inch side. And now you need to tighten it up. That's not tight. And you're gonna need 2 wrenches using one hand. 2 wrenches. So I got some different types of wrenches here. This right here is a 7/16. All right, so those measurements that we've been working with, those are the same measurements you're gonna see: 1/4 inch, 5/8, 7/16, 3/16. These are all numbers that you will continuously see throughout the rest of your life if you're going to HVAC. But this is a 7/16. Anybody know what kind of wrench that is when it's on that side like that and it's got the jaws that are open? It's an open-end wrench. Open jaws, right? So I can get this, but look at how many sides I get. How many sides is that? 2. Just 2 sides, one on the other. It's a good wrench, but it's not very good for if some of the corners are starting to get rounded off. Or if you got a wrench It needs to fit exactly. There can't be any gap between the two sides. If there's a gap, you have the wrong size wrench. The box end wrench is the side I like you to use. The box end wrench fits around 6 sides, all 6, and this is a 6-point box end wrench because it's got 6 different sides. There's also one that has a 12-point box end. All right, it looks a little different. It looks like more like a star instead of a hexagon. Okay, and that 12-point, what that's for is if I had to make an adjustment, I would only need to move the wrench about 10 degrees. All right, with the 12-point wrench. It's a little bit more than that, not the math. But this one here, man, I got to move it all the way up. Look at that. That's it. That's the two points I can get. I can get right here, and then the next spot's right over at that degree. That's almost 30 degrees or so, maybe a little bit more, 30, 37. Whereas this one, I can just, look at that. I just got that. So this is better for tighter spaces. Then we also got this other wrench right here. It's called a flare nut wrench. This is the true wrench you're supposed to be using with the flare nuts, because what this one's designed for is to get on more than 2 sides, 4 sides actually, and almost 6 of the points, and it has a little spot for us to slide the pipe through. All right, so you got the pipe through there like that, and you got to get the right one. So get the right wrench, and there we go. That's it there. Now look, you can't use the flare nut or the box end wrench down here on the filter dryer, and the reason for it is the box end wrench won't go over that. Look, or once it does go over, it's not the right size wrench. So you got to use them. This is why we got to go back to the open end wrench. And I think this one here is either 7/16. Yeah, it's 7/16 open end, right there. No, it's not 7/16. But one is a. No, it's not 5/8. Go grab me a 1/2-inch wrench off the top of that toolbox. 1/2-inch wrench. Looks like this. It's on the top of that red toolbox right over there. All right, so I'll go ahead and we'll get that one. I'll get this flare nut wrench right here opened up, get the right size. I think that's 5/8. Now look, depending on the kit that you get, you might get a 5/8 flare nut, you might get a 3/4 inch flare nut. Same short nut, you're only gonna add a 1/4 inch, but the 1/4 inch is talking about end to inside end. This one here, it worked for this one, but it's not working for this one, because you need a bigger wrench for this one. See a 1/2-inch wrench? It says 1/2 right on the wrench. Probably closer to the smaller sizes. All right, see that there? That's the 3/4 inch. It's a fatter flare nut. So depending on the flare nut that you get out of the kit, set up, determines what size wrenches you're gonna use. And you gotta use 2 wrenches. So like what I'm talking about with 2 wrenches, I put one box in there, or I can use the flare nut one here, and then I can get a box end up on the top. And if you notice, there's angles. You want the angles to go up the same way. It's kind of hard to use the wrench if one's going up and one's going down. So you want the angles to go up the same way. And then 2 wrenches, 1 hand. I just keep tightening with 1 hand like scissors until it's snug tight. What does snug mean? Snug. Snug and a bug, like a bug and a rug. Snug. What does it sound like? Does that sound like I'm strengthening down super tight, gonna crack this stuff open? No. Snug. Just tight enough. Because what will happen is if you continue to tighten the flare, it'll straighten back out, the nut will fly off when you add 100 pounds of pressure to it. And you don't want that. All right, so you could over tighten the flare nut, so that, but if you can feel it wiggle, that means it's not tight enough. Let's see if, and it is 1/2 inch. Way to go, Justin. All right, so 1/2 inch, get my 5/8 flare nut right here, wrench, and we just do the same thing. Tighten it up with 1 hand. Don't let me see, I always see one kid think they can do this business. All right? You can't. You're not going to be strong enough. Maybe you'll get it tight, but it's not using the tool the right way. You want to set this up so that you can 2 wrenches, 1 hand. And then the other thing I see, why 1 hand? Because I see some kids that try and do this. They just get, this is dangerous. You're going to jack yourself in the jaw, right? You're going to lose control of it. You don't have control. Leverage. You got to think about leverage. 2 wrenches, all right, and you got a little angle there. You move this one over here a little bit. All right, if it's too far, we can turn it around a little bit, turn this one the other way. All right, you can just work these angles so that you can grip this with 1 hand and then snug tight. And I always like it when a kid comes up to me and it's like they tighten it up as much as they can and then they can't get it loose and they bring me like 1 wrench. Or they bring me 2 wrenches and they can't get it. You could tighten it up. Who thinks they're super strong in here? Who's the super strong man that wants to tighten that up tight as they can get it? Just squeezing it with their 1 super strong hand. Any of y'all? Come on, you got the football shirt on. You tough or what? Come on, go ahead. Tighten it up as tight as you can. Squeeze it, just squeeze it. Squeeze right there. Yep. Squeeze, super tight. That's pretty tight. Okay, now look, what should you do now? Move the wrench, move the wrench. You're not gonna be able to squeeze no more like that, so you gotta move the wrench back. All right, a little bit back like that. And then we can try and tighten it up a little more. Is that tight? You wanna try a little more? Oh, it's a little harder when it's that far away. He's getting it. Oh, wait a minute. No, one hand. Yeah. All right. Is that tight? That's pretty tight.
Tight.
Yep, no matter how tight he gets it, right? If I come along here like this, and I set it up the right way using the angles of the wrench, I get one there like that, one there like that. Huh? Watch this, eyes closed, ready? Oh, just like that. You saw how much strength he used to do it. Doesn't matter about strength, it's leverage and using the angle of the wrench to get it done. You don't need to over tighten it though. Let's see what happened when you over tighten it. Squeeze that down. What happens is it makes the flare wall really thin, and if you had any defects in it from the burr, now I've got a split right there. That split was not there until we over tightened it and we squished and sandwiched the copper in between the two fittings. And now that's going to leak when you're under pressure. You don't want any leaks. This refrigerant's $100 a pound now. Some people are charging more. $100 a pound. Most systems take about 5 pounds. That's a $500 bill. We're not even talking about fixing the leak yet, or the service call, or the hourly charge. Just the refrigerants to $500. A lot of people don't have that kind of money to spend on this stuff. So this is going to be your first project under pressure. This is how you're graded. You get the dimension grade now. It's either pass or fail. Same thing with a leak test. You pass or fail. Now I will give you 2 chances. Maybe you're just learning to use the wrenches and you didn't get it tight enough. I'll give you 2 chances with a nitrogen tank on the pass or fail for the leak test. So if you put it down, and look, I'm going to put it under pressure, and you're going to put it in a bucket, and it's going to have water filled up in it. And what are you going to see in the bucket if it's leaking?
Bubbles.
Bubbles, that's right. We got another type of solution that we use, because we can't take the whole AC unit and dunk it in a bucket of water. We also have some bubbles that we use for that I'll introduce to you later as well. And then I have some other leak detectors to show you with the refrigerant: electronic, ultrasonic, UV light. All right, so there are all kinds of leak detection methods that we're going to go over, but it's going to start here first with this project. You're also going to be graded on your quality, your time, or your measurements. All right, and measurements looking good, quality's looking good, time looks good. Any questions about any of this stuff right here? Those of you that are done with the practice flares, flare tree, this is what you're going to be working on next week sometime, okay? Maybe even into the final week. So let's get all that stuff together and